Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to my Masters Tournament Report. Yes, now this was the first Masters I played in since I returned to the game, so it was an interesting experience. I felt pretty good going into it. A couple of weeks ago, like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was having a rough patch with Spellweaver in terms of luck, but last week was great. Got rank 1 on ladder, managed to get a 22 or 24 point week, I can't remember, in my final Pro League one for this month. I was feeling great going into this. Ended up 4th place, which is a 4-1 finish, so I thought I'd go over some of the decks and, just take it from there. Now, some of these, well, 2 of them, I've already shown deck techs for. However, one of them is very different, and the other one is 1 card different, but there you go. So we'll start with Nature Rage. Now, the 3 decks I played were Nature Rage Hyper Aggro, Wisdom Dominion Control, and Order Rage Control. Now, Nature Rage for me was banned 5 times, which I didn't bat an eye at. I was operating under the assumption it would be. It was banned 5 times, so I didn't get to play it. I went 5-0 with Wisdom Dominion, and I lost 4 games with Order Rage, which was rough. Now, Nature Rage I already made a detailed deck tech on. This deck has changed by one card. Literally. 1 card different from the deck tech. Down to 1 Unicorn, up to 4 Coal. This is a concession to Advanced Despina. Basically, you need Wilderness Guardian against Advanced Despina, and if you only have 1 Unicorn, you call for it, and then they can't get it out your deck, and if they try, they lose the game, because they waste an entire turn on it. So yeah, that's what that's for. Now, since the deck tech, I saw a lot of other people playing Nature Rage, which was expected. I mean, when you make a video saying it's the best deck, then people are going to try it. And people were really struggling to replicate my performance with the deck. And so I thought, oh, okay. And then I did a ladder run with it, and my win rate actually increased. I've come to the realization that Nature Rage is actually extremely hard to play, and actively rewards experience with the deck. If you're looking to pick it up for, say, Pro League going forward, I would recommend it. There's probably still a month before this thing gets nerfed, so you've got plenty of time to learn the deck, and it's also arguably the best deck in Legendary as well, provided that you can play it properly. This is the problem. Now, a lot of people, when they look at a deck and go, oh, what are you talking about? It's an aggro deck. Yeah. The fact that it's an aggro deck is the reason that people are struggling to get results with this. Primarily because it is a aggro deck that has very fine margins. There aren't really any top deck I win moments like with, say, Rage Aggro. So you're not going to top deck a burn spell to win the game. If you make a mistake, you will lose. That is entirely the whole thing, and also the deck operates a lot on future sight because you need to use calls when you have spare mana. You can't always just use them on the turn you want the creature. And in some matchups, you cannot use Death Trap. Or you have to have 1 Death Trap for a very specific situation, like against soldiers. So essentially, this deck is very hard to play properly, and if you put in the time, it is the best deck in the game. Flat out, it's just ridiculous. I think my win rate with this deck is now 94%, which is the highest I've ever had with any deck, I think. Apart from, like, Elves from several years ago. But anyway, yeah, so 94% or 93%, I can't remember exactly. But it's ludicrously high if you learn how to play it correctly. The best example of this was playing in Legendary at the end of last Pro League, where I played Nature Rage, and that format's slightly different, but it's higher consistency. And I played against Demons twice, which conventional wisdom states for a Death Trap deck should be brutal if they get a portal. And in Legendary, they always have Portal. And I won both times. They were very hard games, but I went 4-1 against 2 different types of demon decks. And that's the kind of thing which a lot of people have come to me saying that that would be a rough matchup, or soldiers are a rough matchup. But they're hard to play matchups. They're not actually bad matchups, and I think that's where people are being tripped up a bit. So anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about it. If you want to see the proper deck tech, it's in the description. I'll link this one and the Wisdom Dominion one as well, although the list is completely different. So yeah, go check it out in the description. But basically, if you put in the time, it's the best deck in the game. But if you don't, then you may not get the results you want. But anyway, it got banned again. It got banned 5 times for me playing it. I didn't expect anyone to let me play this deck. It was the deck that I basically could not lose with on ladder for the end of it. I think I lost like 1 game to Denoman, who was playing Wisdom Dominion. He came second in the end, and in hindsight, I just played the matchup wrong. So yeah, basically, I didn't expect anyone to let me play this, and they didn't. So moving on to Wisdom Dominion. Yes, I called it stock 4-level list. This is a very different version of Wisdom Dominion to the last version I did in the deck tech. Now, I played a lot and watched a lot of Denoman's games in the ladder race because he came second with the Wisdom Dominion Yitix build. I tried that out. I didn't like the Yitix, but I did like some of the other additions, and so I adopted some of them because, frankly, they're good. Now, keep in mind, this is a Conquest lineup, which means I was banning Nature. The entire lineup predicates upon the fact that I was not playing as Nature Rage, Herm Green, like Reverence decks, things like that. I just banned Green. That was my my strategy going in. So keep that in mind while looking at these lists. Conquest is a very different format to ladder. So what's a bit interesting about this? Now, in terms of it, we've got, well, double 2-mana ramp, and then also 6 scarabs, leaving me with 14 ramp spells, which is incredibly consistent. Advanced Despina, I think, is better than Yitix. Having 2 hero powers instead of 3 is a little annoying, and you don't get the draw out of them, but you don't have the life loss problem, which means you can play New Horizons and Power Surge, which are better ramp spells than Scarab. So, well, they cost less, that's the main point. But yeah, they're better ramp spells than Scarab, so the fact you can play them without any downsides is big, and also Advanced Despina basically makes the Order Rage matchup incredibly easy. Whereas, at least if you know how to play it, essentially just get Phoenixes. Don't bother with the rest, get Phoenixes. And that makes the matchup fairly simple. But, yeah, Yitix has a few issues with that, and generally you need to use Devourers to pressure Order Rage instead in that situation, which is not what I particularly like. The other stuff is I'm down to 3 Guardian. I think the 4th one is clunky as hell. Even 3 gets a bit clunky, and I'm playing a lot of targets for these Guardians to discard. So down to 3 Guardian, and I added 4 Catacomb Keepers. Well, playing the full 4 Keeper and also full 4 Devourer and Soul Shepherds. So, Keeper. Now, I talked about Keeper before. My opinion on this has changed, but also I think the metagame has changed. But anyway, my opinion on this has changed. I think it's quite good nowadays. Basically, my last opinion on it predicated on the fact that it wasn't worth using with Silencer, which I maintain. I just don't think Silencer is that good right now, whereas I think Keeper's better than Silencer. That's essentially where I'm going with this. The fact that you get to draw 3 extra cards is amazing, and it's also a 3-cost Spirit, which is important for Devourer. For Devourer, the more I play Wisdom Dominion, the more I think Devourer is just the best card in the deck. Like, Selena and Guardian have a lot of spotlight on them because they're new, but I think Devourer is just the best card. And a lot of other people agree with this. It does pretty much everything. It's a 6-attack Swift that pressures. It's a board wipe. You can target the board wipe. It's also just a removal spell sometimes. You just play it and attack. So, yeah, Devourer is crazy. And if you want to play against Wisdom Dominion, you have to kill their spirits, because otherwise Devourer will ruin you. The other additions are Cleanse, you need an answer to certain spells, and Soul Shepherd. Now, Soul Shepherd is an amazing late-game value engine. Basically, Soul Shepherd, you use the play boost on Scarabs out of the graveyard to get more mana, play more spirits, more mana, more spirits, more mana. it won't always win the game, but the point is it's an extra threat. So you end up being quite threat dense, and it gives you more mana, so you can use Advanced Despina more freely. So I really like this list. And also one other change was Ancient Ruins instead of Sacrifice. Now, I thought about this, and they both cost 1 mana. The difference is that Ancient Ruins requires level 1 card, but there are quite a few in this deck. Keep in mind, Soul Shepherd also turns into level 1 creatures. And basically, they both cost 1 mana and draw a card. One of them requires you to sacrifice board control, the other one doesn't. That's basically why I'm playing Ancient Ruins. I think Stronghold Metropolis is better against snake decks, but that's about it. So I just prefer Ancient Ruins right now. This is something else I realized after watching Denoman play a lot more. I think Ancient Ruins is just better than Stronghold Metropolis, at least in this deck when you got this many level 1 creatures. But anyway, Cathedral instead of Rune. Basically, if you're playing Blades, you need Assassins, and deck space becomes an issue. And also, even then, Cathedral gives you life gain, which is very important. And I think that's heavily underestimated. So yes, I actually quite like Cathedral. Anyway, last deck. Oh god. Order Rage Control, a deck which I really like, but was a bad choice for the metagame. Oh. Yeah. So, my one loss in the tournament was to Rinriet, and I lost with Order Rage twice against aggro. Which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And I realized something very quickly about Order Rage, is that you need Angel of Retribution to be aggro. I didn't realize just how bad it was until I played this tournament. Basically, if you get Angel of Retribution against aggro, you win. And if you don't, you lose. That's essentially how it goes. And I lost 3 games to aggro with this deck, because I just didn't draw Angel on any of them, and I was like, this is statistically unlikely, but I also thought, why am I playing a deck that relies on this in a 5-round tournament? Like, I had to play Order Rage 9 times. I was going to get unlucky in some of them. So, yeah. And the fact that you rely so much on one card is just brutal. Now, the thing is, normally when you're dealing with Conquest 4-1s, you have the situation where maybe one of your decks is really strong, and the other decks are good enough. So if you're 4-1, you'll usually be like, I don't know, like 3-1 with most of your decks, so you struggled a little bit with every deck. Nah, in this Conquest, like, Nature Rage got banned 5 times. I think if I'd played it, I would have won the game. I had absolute confidence in playing NR. And Wisdom Dominion, I easily won my 5 games with Wisdom Dominion. It really wasn't difficult. Order Rage made me fight for points. Like, seriously fight for points. It was 5-4 over the tournament, and one of them was a mirror. So, not accounting for the mirror, which I did win, but it was a long game. But anyway, not accounting for the mirror, it was 4-4. That is atrocious for a 4-1 Masters deck. A deck that is 4-4 is actually just miserable. And I should have played something that wasn't as exploitable. And frankly, this comes down to the fact that I played this exact lineup in the last week of Pro League, and I went 4-0 with it. And I was quite happy with how it performed. And then I spent a week playing Nature Rage for ladder, and then I spent the 3 days, I think, in between ladder and Masters tuning my Wisdom Dominion list, because I wasn't happy with my Wisdom Dominion list. And for what it's worth, my Wisdom Dominion list was good for the tournament. So that was time well spent. The problem is I didn't spend much time on Order Rage. That was the issue. I thought I had it sorted out, and I didn't. I think if I'd played the deck more beforehand, I would have realized that the version I had was not good enough for what I wanted it to do, or I would have just played a different deck. I mean, I still went 4-1, but it's one of those things where every round was hard, because I had to win a game with Order Rage. In fact, Order Rage, when aside from round 1, in round 1 it just won the game and that was it. But in one other round, I also just won the first game with it, but it was a mirror match. So not accounting for that mirror match, in the other performances, it was either 0-2 against runnerup, or I had to win my second game with it every time, and it was really hard. So, yeah, basically, I should have played a different deck, frankly. And I think if I had played a different deck, I had a very, very good shot at getting the 5-0 this time, which is a bit annoying, because the other decks I had were, like, playing them felt easy, frankly. The other decks I had were bulletproof, for lack of a better term, and I also felt like I was playing pretty well. Like, I think I was the most practiced I've been in a very long time for this tournament, so I felt like I had a good shot of the 5-0 if I just wasn't playing Order Rage. Like, don't get me wrong, the deck is good, it just didn't work for what I wanted it for. It's a tier 2 deck, and the way I had matchups lined up, I just shouldn't have played it. I should have played something else, maybe like Blue Soldiers or Zombie Chicken or something like that. I should have played something different. Now, this actual list, I do like 4-ray, because you need it for spell removal, but I was banning green, so this is probably not even correct. 4 reincarnations, because you need them for early pressure. 2 exorcisms to deal with control decks, but yeah, 3 detonate is okay. 4 symbol may have been better. I was only running 3. 3 cannonade was fine. Like, the main issue was I didn't have anything to do with angels. I think maybe I should have played pacifies. Maybe that's the way to go. I think pacify makes you so much worse in the mirror match, but that's about it. I think in hindsight I should have played maybe 3-ray and I don't know, maybe 3-ray, 2 symbol, 2 pacify, or tweak some other numbers, something like that. So yeah, that's basically my sum up of Order Rage. I think that the deck is good, but Conquest is not just about playing good decks, it's about playing good decks that work together. And also, Order Rage is a good deck, but the other 2 decks I was playing were just on different levels. So it's a little rough. But anyway, I can't complain too much. I did go 4-1. So yes, it was a good tournament, but it's one of those things where you just kind of, you get halfway through a tournament and just think, I've picked the wrong deck. Which is frustrating, but I mean, I did claw it back. I was 1-1 after round 2, and I managed to win 3 rounds in a row from there. So, like, I did claw it back, but I had to fight tooth and nail for every single win. So yeah, I think, to give you an idea of why I'm talking about this so much, from my experience with Conquest generally, if my Wisdom Dominion list hadn't gone to 5-0, like, if my Wisdom Dominion list was like 3-2, which is still a better win rate than my Order Rage deck in this tournament, I would have got 2 points. Like, I relied on Wisdom Dominion being able to win every single time, because if it didn't, I would have lost the point completely. So, essentially, if it wasn't for the fact that if it wasn't for the fact that this exact setup happened, where I had a deck that no one would let me play, and I had a deck I was absolutely confident in, then I would have gone 2-3, 3-2 if I was lucky. Whereas the only reason I went 4-1 was because I had those fullback lines. So yeah, but anyway, hopefully that's a little bit of a set of advice if you're thinking about playing in Conquest. Keep in mind what your lineup is weak to, keep in mind what you're trying to trap or play against, and also keep in mind on what people are actually going to play, because that can really come back to hurt you. And frankly, do some testing. Either play a lot of games on ladder with the decks to see what you can do, play in any Conquest tournaments you can before a major one, and just ask people if you can test stuff with them. Like, I've got teammates obviously, but like, a lot of people that play Masters do, and a lot of people that play Masters that don't have teammates, you still can ask people. Like, people will test with you if you ask them. So I would encourage you, like, if you're playing in a major tournament, just ask. Just go ahead and ask people if you can test versus them. Because, well, generally people are nice enough to say yes if they have the time at least. But also, keep in mind, you're giving them matchup information as well. So, yeah, like, it's a two-way street. And also, if you're already on an established team, you have teammates you can test with. But if you're not, like, you're probably newer to the scene. You're probably newer to the high-level scene. So, you don't really have, like, this kind of gamble of, like, am I going to help them more than me? Like, you're trying to get established in it. So, by all means, talk to people, see what you can do, test, because, like, play some conquests. Straight up, just play some best of 3 conquests and see where it takes you, because they do help a lot. They show you some weaknesses in lineup, and it's a very, very different format. There's a lot of mind games that goes on, a lot of preparation and deck building, and in the end of the day, you also just have to play well. But anyway, that's my rundown for my top 4 finish in Masters. I'll put the 3 deck lists in the description. I'll also link the deck tech for Nature Rage and Wisdom Dominion, although keep in mind the Wisdom Dominion one is a little out of date. So I'll link it down anyway, but it's a little bit out of date. But the Nature Rage one is still pretty solid. That deck is very optimized. And at some point I might do an Order Rage deck tech, or I might just move on to other stuff. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or ask me any questions, put it in the comments section below. But as for now, it's been Jotto, signing off.